Both of our championships are proving the age-old wisdom that consistency is the way to go. Between both of our points leaders, their total number of finishes outside the podium this season is 3. It will not be easy to keep up a Herculean effort like that, so all eyes remain affixed to Alawi and Ruiz. We'll see if they can keep up the trend as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the PRL LeMans Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Ducky Beard. Silverstone's newest rendition has changed the dynamic of the track, but it has not been short of excitement. Let's head to our track guide to find out more. Welcome to Silverstone. Most famously known for being the first circuit to host a round of Formula One, this place has since become synonymous with British motorsports. Hosting everything from sports cars to touring cars to open wheels and even motorcycles, it's a track that fits a wide variety of vehicles. With 3 different layouts to choose from, you've got a little something for any level of racing. The longest of those layouts boasts 18 turns along 3.19 miles. That comes out to 5.13 kilometers in metrics, so it can take a bit to get around it, even in higher-powered machinery. Its main characteristics are the high-speed straights and corners and general lack of elevation change. Its most famous set of turns is most definitely the Maggots-Beckett sequence, in which anything with high downforce finds itself challenged with the rapid changes of direction. However, don't discount the first couple corners in this latest iteration of the track. Abbey and Farm often require a greatly balanced car and some serious bravery if you're side by side. Corners such as Village, Brooklyn, Stowe, and Vale see the majority of overtaking action, but in cars with less horsepower, expect the draft to offer other opportunities. The Hangar Straight is perhaps the most notorious for draft battles to erupt. All in all, this versatile racetrack located just northwest of London provides both history in its roots and action on the tarmac. The huge number of British fans that typically attend events are seldom left wanting. Well, DJ, I imagine because we see the WEC race here in real life, I suspect that the dynamic between these cars is going to be kind of similar to that, right?
Very much so, at least what you see in real life, Joe. And one of the things that does make this new, well, we say new layout of Silverstone, it's coming on 10 years old now at this point, but what makes it so exciting is the ability to fight back around so many of these corners. If you go for an overtake, it's not merely done as simple as that. You look at the Brooklands, Luffield, Woodcote complex, very, very easy for the car on the inside or the outside to just hang in there and it'll come back to you. Same with the arena section, as well as going through Stowe, Vale Club, all of that. Drafting is going to be a big key here. We're going down both the Hangar and the Wellington Straights, so we're going to have to keep an eye out for that. And in terms of getting past the slower cars on the circuit, getting past the slower classes, it's going to be easier than we've seen before, certainly easier than we saw last time out at Imola, but there are still a couple of danger areas. You do not want to catch those slower cars coming through the infamous Maggots-Beckett's Chapel complex. That is a one-way ticket to disaster, and you've got to be very careful if you catch them right at the corner before that, coming through cops. Very, very tricky to run offline there, so it's really going to be an issue of trying to get a good pass done. That's going to be the thing today.
We'll watch out for that, but before we get to that, today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net.
The PRL LeMans Series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Now, those championships that I mentioned as we look at the LMP2 standings, first off, it is a decent gap between Ruiz and Herbino. But remember, Herbino got some penalty points earlier in the season, so he could still fight back and try and get himself up ahead of the Punto CL Racing driver. Karl Modoff on the charge as well, taking his first win of the season last round. Christian Eisler not too far behind him with Owen Watts, then rounding out our top five. Of course, we have the GTE standings, which is incredibly tight up at the top. 9 points between Alawi, Ross, and Ash. And then you get a big gap down to Russo and Dzube. But it's been fascinating these few rounds between Alawi and Ross, both on 2 wins. Ash on a single win, though. What about the team's championship? How are both of those sitting?
Well, as of right now, you can see there that Punto CL Racing, by that virtue of consistency, like you talked about earlier, Joe, they are beating out Delta Sport U4K by 41 points. That's really our closest battle that we've got. NinjaTrader LMP2 sitting a whopping 135 points back of Punto CL in third place. Final lap Team Yellow trying to close in the gap on them, as well as SRT eSport Orange, but they are a good ways back as well. So that battle for first, really the closely contended battle there. In the GTE standings, if we jump over to that, RSR Esports, as you can see, RSR Performance by RSR by G Performance, excuse me. They are currently leading it, that being led off by Uthman Alawi. They are just eking ahead of Frozen Speed Full Send Racing, 31 points up of them. SRT Esports Green, I would call that a couple of disasters away from being able to close in on that top group, but they are sitting 88 points back, so a good ways back from them. The battle for third, though, Vector by RSR, very, very close to them. They are going to be hoping to gain into that third place position, and there you have Lockup Racing, 127 points back in fifth.
Now, for today's event, it is 60 minutes that they will be running around here with 2 classes on track, the LMP2s and the GTEs. It's open setup in the series, but a big talking point will be the incidents. There you can see they'll actually get a drive-through at 13 and a disqualification at 18. At a track with a lot of paved runoff, it'll be easy to rack those up. But good boys and girls, they get some bonus points for fastest lap, the pole, and 3 incidents or less. And right now, I believe David Menino in the number 3 is going to be our first to put a time in. Now, here's what's interesting. The laps take a while to get around here, and I think they were warning some of them, DJ, before we got to the qualifying that they're going to have to hustle if they want to get all 4 of them in.
They most certainly are, as there you see Owen Watts being able to get to the top of the charts there. Looks like Menino's time not going to count. Owen's going to stay on top. Christian Eisler behind him, and Daniel Ziegers popping in there as we watch Karl Modoff coming out of the corner there. He's going to jump to the top of the charts with a 45.5.
And almost 4/10 over Felipe Ruiz, who right now is probably his biggest rival. Looks like Flanagan is going to lose both laps here with a spin right at the start-finish line. That is certainly not what he was looking for. Alawi, did he have an off track there? Looks like that one did not count, indeed.
Yeah, he was about 4 seconds off of Stephen Ash's current provisional pole time of a 154.8, so I think that off-track also costing him some time. Here we watch Joshua Wolf coming to the line. Very tricky to get that right. You can run a little bit wide there, but not too much. That is going to count for Joshua. That's going to put him P7.
As we check in on Ted Lowendick now, coming around to put his first lap in. Definitely don't think he's going to get all 4 of them on the board here. He's only got 5 minutes of the 10 minutes left. As he crosses the line, it is a 55.3. That's good enough for 6th position.
And I think Ted really struggling a little bit, trying to get the power down. You saw off the line as Tenside Layton coming across to come 6th. Very, very tricky. You want to run a lot of low downforce around here with these long straights, but there are some very quick corners that you want to maximize your aerodynamic performance. As we watch David Menino now trying to get in a clean lap. He comes across the line with 46.270. Is that going to stick? It is. That's a 5th place for Dave.
Still waiting for a time from Herbino, who just comes across, and both of the 92's first 2 laps have not counted. Ooh, he's starting to be under the gun here. Felipe Ruiz on his 2nd lap also apparently had an off track somewhere. Cal Quinn will bump him down to 5th as Horatio goes up to P4. What about Raymond Day? Anyway, switched over to Bertome, who is briefly in 9th and then gets shuffled down into 10th. Looks like Day wound up in 8th as we head over to Michael Ross, one of our competitors for the championship here. And it looks like the Lone 4 GT, unfortunately, also going to have a lap that is not counted. Instead, we head over to Flanagan. David still looking for a clean one himself. He's only got a little bit of time left, and I think he'll only get one shot at it.
And there you see Joshua Wolf coming across the line with a line that doesn't count. You saw just how much Stephen Ross was trying to, or Michael Ross was trying to fight that car around the track. Here comes Brian coming across the line, though. Once again, a lot of drivers fighting oversteer out of that final corner, so that's going to be something to keep an eye on.
Looks like Ash did not get a clean one on the 2nd time around. He's got enough time for one more go at things. Ted Lowendick will be next in his Porsche, and a 59.8 is not an improvement by any stretch. Instead, we switch over to the 3rd place driver, Owen Watts. He could bump himself onto the front row. It'll take less than a 10th, but no, he doesn't have enough.
Not able to get it there for Owen, but he's got a little bit of time left to try to go. Here comes Herbino. Can he get that clean lap in? Ooh. Yes, he can, and it's fast.
Wow. Up to pole immediately for Herbino. Nick Johnston in 8th. Karl Modoff not able to improve. He can't respond to Herbino this lap. He'll get one more shot at it. I see Christian Eisler getting ready to start his final one as he hit a 145.3. That was good enough for what is 3rd currently. This is Mac Miller down in the GTE class, sitting in 9th, coming off of club himself. And he must have had a problem on that lap, unfortunately. So we switch back to Kenny Rodriguez.
Kenny's going to be about 0.3 off his best time, so he'll stay 14th for the moment. Here comes Michael Ross again. He's going to be wanting to improve. He is well down the order from what we have normally seen. He is able to improve by 0.2 of a second. That'll bump him up to 5th, but still down a little bit from what we're used to seeing. Joshua Wolf able to go faster. There he goes. That'll put him in 9th place.
All right, and then David Flanagan in a very shiny chrome-looking number 24. A2072 will finally put him on the board, but he still sits in 15th. Layton down and across to see if he can go higher than 7th. Nope, he is about a 10th off of his quickest in the meantime. Lowendick's going to abandon his final lap. Owen Watts, who was briefly in 3rd place, currently sits in 5th. So what's the number 14 got under him for his final flyer as he comes out of that last apex? It's a 45.5. That's an improvement, and up onto the 2nd row once again.
Nice job for him there. You see Christian Eisler going faster. That's going to put him up to 2nd place, currently on the outside of row 2. He's going to be happy with that, but Herbino able to put in an even faster time. There you see Ruiz able to improve ever so slightly, but he's going to stay 4th. Here comes Cal Quinn across the line. Cal Quinn unable to improve.
And Modoff spun on his final lap. So another driver without the ability to respond to Herbino, our current pole sitter. And based on the pace we've seen from the rest, it doesn't look like anybody has anything to try and topple him. My goodness, this is going to be fascinating. Federico Montini, who currently sits in 9th, is off and around this one last time, but that's not going to be an improvement. I see Rafael Russo up next in his Corvette at 54.9. Oh, up onto the front row for Russo. A great recovery.
Good drive for him. Nicholas Delp able to go a little bit faster there, putting his car in 11th. We're going to watch Leighton here as time expires, and that's going to be it. That's going to solidify the order here, Joe.
Indeed, Christoph Herbeno will start on the pole and take those bonus points with Christian Eisler next to him. Christian still winless this season. Karl Modhoff trying to repeat from last week. He'll do it from third. And Felipe Ruiz starts P4. Owen Watts will be fifth. And Horatio Calquin starts in sixth. Inside of the fourth row, it's Dave Menino in seventh and Tianxai Leighton in eighth, with Nick Johnston putting it into P9. Josh Wolf, good enough to round out the top 10 as Raymond Day starts the next page, and Daniel Zegers is the last of our 12 prototypes here today.
Stephen Ash able to get the pole in his Porsche here today, with Rafael Russo putting in a mega lap in his Corvette to come home second place in the GTEs. Uthman Alawi will be starting off on the inside of that second row in the GTEs, flanked by Tyler DeZube. Behind them, Boris Ovando and Michael Ross. Michael looking to gain up some time to keep that title fight alive. Francisco Montini will be behind them, followed by Ten Lowendick, and Francisco's brother Federico Montini will be lining up ninth in class. Mac Miller will be behind them, followed by Nicholas Delp and Jerome Bethune. Sean Romig will be in 13th in class, followed by Byron Borchi, Kenny Rodriguez in 15th, David Flanagan 16th, and Brett Barrett bringing up the back of the field. Brett unable to set a time.
As we wait for the rest of the field to make their way out to the grid, we'll get a very, very short pace lap, and then we're on our way. Getting the tires up to temperature might be critical for those who can manage it. Only 76 Fahrenheit on the track surface right now, and the sun is setting currently as it's 4 p.m. virtual standard time. 24 Celsius, of course, for our metrically inclined folks. But it is a bit windy today, and, well, you see those big, almost sail-like fins on the back of those LMP2s. I suspect if they get some gusts, that'll make it tricky out there.
It will, especially an area to watch that is any particularly strong gust coming through Stowe, which is the high point of the track. That's going to be an area where the wind can catch especially strong. And the other thing to keep in mind is where that wind is going to be blowing. Are they going to get a tailwind or a headwind coming down the straightaway? That can be very, very detrimental to a car trying to come up behind. So something else to keep an eye on.
Pace car already in. That's how quickly they get around here. And Herbeno is going to go off early. He accelerates before they even get into Vale, and this is tripping up Christian Eisler because Modhoff is able to get inside of him as the green flag waves here at Silverstone. Behind them, a big run coming off of Ruiz down into Abbey, but he's going to have to fight side by side for fourth with Owen Watts. It looks like Watts gives that up. Let's head back to the GTEs.
In the GTEs, Rafael Russo looking very, very fighty here early on, taking the battle right to Stephen Ross. Has to fall back a little bit, Stephen Ash, as they have to fall back ever so slightly behind them. Russo trying to keep up the pressure. Alawi and DeZube seeming to go line astern, but the pressure continuing to come on from Rafael Russo. I think everybody looks through there nice and clean through this first section, and now here comes Alawi starting to close the gap up to Rafael Russo.
He took a look down into Village, but it just wasn't happening. So he stays in line. Let's see if any of them get a run down the Wellington Straight as we watch the LMP2s come out of that section down towards Cops, past the support pits. Herbeno leads by about 0.7 of a second over Modhoff. Similar distance back to Eisler in third, but Ruiz is under pressure and he has a bad exit out of Cops. Does Watts try and push the issue? No, he's going to stay single file here in a Maggots and Beckett's.
It's a smart move there from Watts. You really don't want to be making that move unless you're looking at the last 5 minutes of the race, but now it's all bound to the battle here in the GTEs. This is very, very close. Rafael Russo able to get a very, very good run trying to keep up behind Stephen Ash, who we've had great performances from the entire season. And behind them, Tyler DeZube really doing a good job of keeping up behind Uthman Alawi. But most importantly, Michael Ross not able to move up the order. I would have expected him to try to make a couple of moves at the start, but that not being the case here.
He's a little bit stuck behind Ovando right now. Our leaders already coming across and completing lap one. Herbeno keeps his pole intact. Modhoff instead slips into second as Eisler finds himself down to third early. Ooh, and a nice battle here between Cal Quinn and Johnston. This is for 6th position. That's Johnston in the magenta and black machine, looking for the over-under on Cal Quinn, and I think he's got it. Cars to the inside coming through Aintree, and now it's a drag race down the Wellington Straight.
And Johnston's going to have the preferred line going into Brooklands. Good to see Nicholas Johnston back. Always one of the more exciting drivers to watch. He's going to be a little bit later on the brakes. Here's the preferred line, and Joe, here is that fight back like I talked about. Looked like there was a little bit of contact, but the line comes back right now to Cal Quinn. Cal Quinn able to get just ahead, but Johnston's sticking with him on the outside.
Known for taking a win over the Indy Pro 2000 Series, Johnston obviously trying to ply his trade here, and he's going to make contact as Cal Quinn almost loses the car. That was getting a little bit rough for the second lap of the race. Gives him a little bit of a hello from that one.
Certainly does, and they are not done with it yet. Look at the way they're absolutely going at it, but Johnston falls back in the line, coming through Nuggets and Beckett's, trying to just get a good exit here down the hangar straight. That's what he wants to do, but not able to get the maximum speed, although he is gaining in that draft, Joe.
I wonder if there's a little damage on the side of Cal Quinn from that touch. Looks like he'll manage to stay ahead, but look at the stream of cars behind him. Menino, Layton, and Wolf are all watching eagerly.
Looks like there is not any damage, at least that we can see, to Horatio Cal Quinn's car, so that's going to be a sigh of relief for the 666. You can see there Carl Modoff setting the fastest lap of the race in P2. Looks like Johnston is not close enough back to make the attack here through that first corner complex of Abbey and Farm, but he is going to try to keep the pressure on, but he's got to watch out because David Menino now closing in behind him.
Menino thought about it, but then wasn't close enough to get any sort of overlap down into Village. Tries to pull a similar trick on him with an over-under, but doesn't quite get the acceleration that the 28 does. Here we go again, though. It's a long run down to Brooklands. The slipstream going to pull along Menino. He thinks about it once more and then gets back to the racing line.
I think that was about a half of a think about him there. He goes down to the inside. Very late move there from Menino. He's now going to try to go for an over-under around this long, twisting left field section. He can try to get a little bit of a better run there by cutting the corner, but it doesn't work as it looks like Johnston was able to carry more momentum there around the outside.
Now, ahead of them, it has been closing in between Eisler, Ruiz, and Watts. This is for the 3rd position. Eisler, after having a great qualifying, isn't able to really back that up so far. It's still early days in the race, but this is not a good sign.
No, it's not, and we've seen Eisler not exactly have stellar race pace a lot during the course of this race. You see Ruiz there ducking his head to the outside. That's a little bit of a psych-out move there from him, just trying to see if he can get Christian Eisler to buy onto a later braking point, maybe trip him up, but no real gain right here. They slam on the brakes as they go into Club, trying to get that car around such a great corner, multiple angles to take. You can see both drivers fighting a little bit of oversteer. Big moment there from Ruiz.
Car does not look its happiest at the moment as he continues to trail in the wake of Christian Eisler. Falls back a little bit before they come up to Village, so nothing doing here into the arena section of the track. Let's hold on to it just a little bit longer, especially now because I think Ruiz suddenly going to be under attack as Watts got tucked right up underneath him coming out of the loop. And he just loses a little bit of time now as they head down the Wellington Straight, so the 14 is going to have to stay a little more patient.
He is, and you saw Owen Watts there taking that very wide line into Brooklands. It did help him, able to close up here through Luffield. Now, he's not making the same mistake that we saw earlier on, running that corner a little bit too tight and costing himself momentum. Not really a good overtaking opportunity into Cops, but you can see those drivers ahead just trying to maximize as much of the track as they can to try to take this Cops corner absolutely flat.
Haven't looked at the GTEs a whole lot. Well, they've just kind of been stuck at a bit of a same distance apart. Stephen Ash leads about half a second ahead of Russo. A little bit closer back to Alawi, who currently sits in 3rd, and then Dezube back about a second to 4th. But not really any attacks, not really any dicing that we've seen so far. They're just kind of holding station.
They certainly are, Joe. Really, the only change in position we've seen in this GTE field is Mac Miller had a problem early on, drops 5 spots down, and that promoted everybody behind him up 1. But other than that, these drivers are exactly where they started the race.
All right, so is it going to be difficult then for these GTE cars? Will they need that traffic to come through to disrupt things and give people an opportunity? Or is everybody playing the long game and just waiting for things to develop before they really take risky maneuvers? In fact, it's going to be a little bit before the LMP2s even get to the back of this GTE crowd. So they've certainly got time before that starts to unfold. Meanwhile, speaking of the leaders in the LMP2s, Herbino has been chased down by Karl Modhoff. So the two leaders, the teammates, clearly have similar pace here in the race itself. So are they just kind of waiting and just working together from here? Is Modhoff, now that he's gotten closer to the back of his teammate, just being told keep this pace and wait till the pit stops?
Well, we've certainly seen this kind of team strategy from them before. I also wouldn't be surprised, Joe, if we see in a 5 or 6 laps time to see these two switch positions. You know, this isn't a track like Daytona that we necessarily think about as a heavy draft track, but the Wellington and Hangar Straights are deceptively long. You spend a lot of time on full power here around Silverstone, and so you can save a good amount of fuel if you try to down these long straightaways, and that may be a little bit of what we're seeing.
Behind them, you may have noticed that Ruiz poked his nose out once again, but really wasn't doing anything serious with Christian Eisler. They're going to stay 3rd, 4th, and 5th with Eisler, Ruiz, Watts in those respective positions. Completing another lap, our top 2 come across the line. Beginning lap 6 here at Silverstone. We're only 10 minutes into this race. And that battle for second is awful tight, though. Ruiz seeming to struggle in the dirty air coming off of the 727.
Yeah, he's just having a little bit of trouble putting the power down there. You see Owen Watts really able to catch up to him there, trying to get something going. And Joe, interesting thing, you mentioned Ruiz popping out to the outside, coming down the Hangar Straight. He also wiggled the car back and forth, almost like he was trying to get some heat in the tires. So I wonder if those low track temps are really affecting these drivers more than we thought.
They haven't really gone up since we last looked at it. They're pretty much the same. They come off and through Woodcote now. Riding on board with the 3rd car in this train, Owen Watts running in P5. It's going to watch them swing through Cops and see if anybody can get any sort of run, but no dice.
Not at all, and this is the same thing we saw on the previous lap. It really looks like Ruiz's car just has a little bit more speed coming through that middle sector, through Brooklands, Luffield, Woodcote, and Cops, and then he just loses out a little bit. And there you see him poking his nose out a little bit again, just thinking about it, trying to force Eisler into something resembling a mistake. Eisler, though, very cool under pressure right here for the moment, not giving in to anything.
Remember, Ruiz is our points leader over in the LMP2, so as he watches Herbino get away from him up at the front, that's valuable points going away. We've had a problem with Vorse and Rodriguez. The 969 off at the side of the track along with Vorse, and I think this was Rodriguez giving him an unintentional tap with that Corvette. There it is right there.
Yeah. That's just Kenny not anticipating the braking distance for that Porsche up front of him. We're going to ride on the front of Kenny Rodriguez's car here. You can see it. That's Vorse just getting a little bit offline and then trying to catch it and braking harder than Kenny would have anticipated. A little love tap that sends him spinning around.
Oh, and Eisler just lost his spot to Ruiz. Almost lost it to Watts as well, coming down the Wellington Straight. There you can see Owen looking on either side, maybe trying to get the over-under, and it doesn't seem to be enough, but they start to get some decent speed, so he's going to get a tow here. It's a shorter straight compared to some of the others. Is he brave enough? No, he's just going to stay behind.
He's not, and now it comes down to that wind effect we were talking about. This is another one of the areas a little bit higher on the track, that Maggots and Beckett's complex. The wind can buffer you a little bit. If you see, there's so much more speed that Owen Watts carried through the second part of that corner, but had to back off big time as he was going to run into the back of Christian Eisler. If he wasn't able to slow it down, he did. So not able to get the move done here, but a loss for Eisler on that lap overall.
Trying to figure out what happened. It almost looked like Eisler had a slowdown penalty, but I can't really see anywhere that he cut the course too greatly. So a bit of a strange situation for the 727. Now that he's handed it away and Ruiz has clear air, can he try and push to close that 5-second gap up to Modolf and Herbino? Not with Modolf setting fastest laps of the race, he's not.
Well, the one thing that may help him is that these lead LMP2s, Herbino and Modolf, have started to catch a little bit of GTE traffic. They just got by Rodriguez and Vorse, who you saw having those issues, and now they're going to be approaching David Flanagan, Mac Miller, and Jerome Bethune here in about a lap or so time. And there you can see that trailing pair starting to catch them as well. So this is where that traffic is going to start to come into play, and where timing is going to be everything, Joe. You want to catch these guys on the straights. You don't want to get them in the twisty bits.
Exactly. And for those wondering why we're making such a big deal about Ruiz and trying to race with Modolf and Herbino, it's because those are our top three in the points, and Ruiz doesn't want to be giving these away to him. Now, to his credit, if he stays here on the podium, it will make him 6 for 7 in podium finishes. The lowest finish he's even had this season was a 6th place. And that tells you just how consistent he's been.
Exactly. And while every driver out on this circuit wants to win the race, you don't get behind the wheel of a car to finish third. You get out there to win. When you get into the closing stages of a championship, you have to start thinking about that consistency and staying on the podium like that. And Ruiz doing exactly what he needs to do to be into that position.
Meanwhile, this fight between Eisler and Watts continues down into Vale. Looks like Watts able to get by, I think, when we weren't looking, because he was at... wonder if the traffic just opened up his... gave him an opportunity here. Let's take another look at it.
So we jump back here. There you can see that's Eisler way ahead. Oh, just absolutely slowed down on the exit of Copse. And Owen Watts, brilliant moves, threading the needle there.
That's some trust in everybody to hold their line. He almost has it come right back at him, though, as he has to weave by that Porsche down through the Maggots and Beckett sequence. Nicely done. Back live, and Eisler must have been the cork in the bottle, because Watts is already extending the gap ahead of him.
He is, and Horatio Quinn behind him starting to reel in Christian Eisler ever so slightly. So Eisler had a very good qualifying pace, but not the best race pace here today. It's starting to fall off a little bit there. You see as Owen Watts works his way around some more traffic.
Well, that separates one of the best battles we had up at the top. We haven't checked in on the GT cars in a while. And to be honest, it's actually staying relatively close between Ash, Russo, and Alawi. Again, all split by about half a second. Then Dezube can't hang. He's about 2.5 seconds back. So top three still have something to fight for here. But how close are they to having Herbino on top of them? Actually, pretty close, I'd say. Herbino's a couple corners away.
He is, and that'll throw a couple of loops for these guys, but at the same time, I get the sense that there's a lot of just wait and see driving out of these top three. None of them really want to make too much of an aggressive move here. They know it's a long race, and I would have to imagine that these heavy cars, they're not having nearly as much lateral load put in those tires as the really aero-dependent LMP2s, and so as a result, it's harder to get the tires up to temperature. So they're just trying to keep everything cool and collected, not trying to overwork the tires, preserve the life as much as possible, and keep as much heat in them as they can.
Herbino can now see them a little up the ways. He's getting past Ovando. Oh, my goodness. Actually, our leader, Herbino, had a big moment with Boris Ovando just now coming down into the Brooklyn's left-hander. Let's take a look at the replay here. Oh, we may have gone a little far back. So we're going to try and find it here in a second. This happens at the end of the Wellington Straight. So we need to go a little bit up the waves here, but you can see he's already run into the traffic, so he's having to pick and choose his way around them, slowing him up just a little bit. But again, it's his teammate behind him, Karl Modov, so obviously he doesn't have to worry too greatly. Now this is where you're going to see it. That is Ovando up in front of him, and I don't know if he just catches him off guard. Whoa! Oh, was there actual contact there?
I think there was. I think I definitely saw both of those cars leave the ground ever so slightly, and that was just Ovando not having the best spatial awareness there. Didn't realize that Herbino was coming down the inside of him and just carried on a racing line like he normally would.
Fascinatingly, Herbino doesn't seem to have lost pace because of that contact. In fact, it's 3 seconds now back to Karl Modov. Some of that most likely due to the traffic. But regardless, the 92 is still holding on to the top spot and fighting away as behind him. We ride on board currently with Herbino, but Modov also just one by one picking off these GT cars around the outside of Aintree going by the Corvette. I believe, yep, that indeed, those are our two leaders. This is Ash letting him through, and that was Russo in the number 8.
Yeah, and that's very lucky for those GTE leaders to be able to get on by without too much headache there. You can see those gaps pretty much stable at just over a half a second in between them, as now it is down to Karl Modov to get around them. They're going to hope to get it done here quickly. This is not the best place for Modov to do it. Cops is very hard to pass at, and getting them through Maggots and Beckett's, oh, this is the worst time to catch traffic.
Got to watch out for those off tracks as well. We've seen some drivers certainly having to push the boundaries here. So they weave their way back and forth through Maggots and Beckett's. Incredible changes of direction through these sets of corners onto the hangar straight. Stephen Ash keeping Rafael Russo at arm's length today. They're starting to get towards the pit window, though we don't expect many of them to come in early here in this race. These top three have not been separated by much in these first 20 minutes. This is Ash that we ride on board with, looking back at Russo, and trailed by Alawi, that third Porsche in line.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, they have pulled about a 3.2-second gap back to Tyler Dezube in fourth. So these three really in a race of their own, just trying to keep everything nice and collected here. Now it's Felipe Ruiz coming up behind them to try to get the pass done there. You can see slicing his way in between them, getting past Alawi, now going by Rafael Russo, that second place GTE, and he's hopefully going to dispatch Stephen Ash here on the Wellington Straight.
Ooh, that slowed up Russo quite a bit. I wonder if Alawi will finally have the run he's looking for. It just doesn't seem to be enough. And even though he's getting pulled along, it's not going to put him in a position to try and attack. So sitting on 2 wins right now. Alawi, I'm sure, would like a third, but he is not comfortable in terms of points and really can't allow guys like Ash and Russo to be ahead of him like this.
No, he can't, but he also can't throw away the race with a gutsy move about halfway through it. So he's going to try to just keep it as under him as possible, especially with all of these LMP2s starting to work their way through. That's Eisler going by. Cal Quinn, you can see they're just in that rear view camera. That slowed down Russo ever so slightly, so this could be a little bit interesting. Here comes Cal Quinn to the inside. Oh, Malawi. That's a very brave move, even in a faster car. And now he's going to be able to get past. There you see him getting past Russo on the Wellington Straight, but here comes Johnson up behind him as well.
I think Nick's going to get 1, but not 2. Indeed, he's going to split them yet again. He has to stay patient through Stowe Corner. Now he's able to outbrake them, forcing Russo briefly offline, but he returns back to the right side of the track. Well, this is good news for Ash, bad news for Russo. He's starting to lose touch with our GTE leader as Alawi continues to apply pressure.
I'd also make an argument there that it's a little bit bad for Horatio Calquin. He looks like he got very much slowed down there through that last sequence of turns, and Nick Johnson really able to catch up to him here. We've seen just how aggressive Nicholas Johnson can be over the course of a race. Watch him here. He has gotten that gap down to Calquin to about a second or 1.1. Little bit of wheel spin there coming out of that arena complex, but Nicholas is definitely in the chase mode here.
Right on board with the number 28 coming up to the back of Cal Quinn. Has it down to 1 second between the pair of them. A little bit of an odd line there from Cal Quinn. I'm not sure if that was wheel spin or what he was trying to do there.
Well, that exit from Luffield and going into Woodpit, it's very, very easy to get wrong. That corner is so incredibly long when you're driving through it, and it requires the hardest thing in the world for a racing driver to have, which is patience. If you get on the throttle too early, that is a one-way ticket out into the gravel trap. You just have to wait and not put any sort of pressure on either of the pedals and wait until the corner comes to you.
On board Nick. I don't think he's going to be getting there anytime soon. But I have noticed that Alawi is making sure that Russo is always having to glance in those mirrors. Behind them, that's Josh Wolf, who looks like he thought about the outside line. No, he's going to switch it back to the inside. Is he going to split them? Yes, he is.
He's going to split them. That's going to be a little bit of a catch out there for Alawi, having to brake to allow for an extra car in between. But now Wolf is going to be able to get the move done as they go down into Abbey. Looks like that's going to be clean. Everybody able to get back on the racing line.
All right, so that allows them to battle on. Although it does look like Alawi is a couple tenths farther away from that number 8 car. Getting close to the halfway point. Is it just me, DJ, or does this have the makings of a pressure cooker? Things have just kind of been steadily increasing. Drivers getting closer to one another. We're not seeing anything dramatic, but it could boil over at any moment.
Joe, it's one of the things that Silverstone absolutely does best. You watch races here time in and time out, and through the first half of it, you think, oh, God, what a snore. And then all of a sudden, the last 10 minutes, things explode. And, well, in the case of Formula One this year, they quite literally did with the tires. But that is what Silverstone does. It just keeps these cars nice and tight. It is a driver's circuit. It is just a pleasure to drive, and there are ample overtaking opportunities, but they're not overly easy. You've really got to put the car in there tough, and so it makes you really commit.
So we head back to Ted Lowendick, who's been chasing down the 22. This is for 7th position. Ovando, who came out swinging, has not had a win since that very first round. And ever since has been trying for it. He's gotten 2 podiums since then. In the most recent rounds, Lowendick's got a fantastic run here, though. 72, decides he doesn't want to take it quite yet, though.
Find a little bit of oversteer caused by that extra curve that he was coming over the line there, but able to keep everything under him. Ovando able to get a little bit of a better run, though, out of that final corner. Here they come through this amazing plug sequence. Lowendick just trying to keep pressure up on Ovando. Doing a very good job to just stay within striking distance.
They come through Abbey, and it swings back into Farm and breaks hard for Village. Both of them trying to get the cars as far left as they can to open up that corner. Lowendick falls back off to about half a second back from Ovando. Definitely a few moments we're seeing with that wheel. Lowendick having to try and keep it from going out from under him.
Well, Joe, if you think back to qualifying, we saw a couple other drivers having that same problem as well. It seems like there's a lot of guys going for a little bit more more of a high-speed setup here today, minimizing downforce across the car, and that's causing a little bit of problems on corner exit. But there you see Lowendick starting to try to get some good runs here. That is legal what Ovando is doing right there. You can cut that corner pretty massively. Lowendick just poking a little bit of his nose out to the outside, trying to see if there's anything doing, not forcing Ovando off the line, as you see Christoph Herbino there on the top of your screen setting the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, Herbino's extended it out to about 4.5 seconds over his teammate. Unless Modov is trying to play some fuel games here, I get the sense that Christoph has got the measure of everybody else today.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think Carl was able to keep up nice and close behind him when they were in draft range, but now that Christoph has been able to pull away, he has just absolutely put the laps down like nobody's business. You can see him here working his way through that, I believe, is Luffield as he comes back onto the old pit straight.
The Delta Sport U4K cars have looked mighty. Even though Modov was not on the front row, he didn't really need it. There's no bonus points for the front row. It's only for that pole position. He got into second place quite quickly, and there you can see, I wonder if that was traffic, because that's a very massive swing on that last lap, 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, not exactly what we've seen, as it looked like Modov was able to reel in ever so slightly. So, Joe, I think that may be the right assessment there, that Christoph just caught a little bit of bad traffic. That's what pulled him back in.
As he comes around through Stowe, completing yet another lap. Honestly, the best battle that we've got on track is the one that we were watching right before it between Ovando and Lowendick. And a big mistake from Ovando hands that one over. It's a good catch. Let's watch that again. I'm sure it's little consolation to the 22, though.
So this is going down to break into Brooklands. That left-hander there, you see the car just starts to over-rotate ever so slightly. Great job there, using a little bit of throttle to keep the car rotating just right. We're going to go on board with Norris as this car starts to go. Looks like he's driving a dirt car there, Joe, just able to keep that thing nice and together.
I mean, that is a pretty steady slide considering, so great job only losing one position out of it, but his job is not done because Federico Montini is the red, white, and green car that you see behind him, who he popped on board with. Looks like he's got the run that he needs, but Ovando, unfortunately, is in trouble because this spot could easily go away.
It could, and Federico here trying to get it down, runs a little bit of a wider angle into the start of club there, working his way close. Look how close he's able to get here. They're both going to get on the power. Now he's just got to stay close enough and try to fight through some of the aero wash. There you see just trying to get some fresh air onto the nose, try to scare Ovando a little bit. So here they go. Yeah, look at that, Joe. He's just about a half a nose off of the rear bumper, trying to get as much clean air onto the car as possible. You see a lot of that in open wheel cars, but it works the same in these GTs. So now he's got to try to get this run perfectly out of the arena section. Looks like Ovando's able to get a little bit more speed right off the line. They cut through here, and I think Ovando may just be able to hold this for the time being.
Yeah, Montini doesn't seem to be able to launch himself quite as well as he would like. We are now past the halfway marker in this race. And if I was Montini and I found it difficult to try and get by Ovando here, I'd start thinking about those pit stops. One thing to consider is that the LMP2s do not have the biggest of pit windows, so we expect them to be in relatively soon, probably before we get to 20 minutes left.
Yeah, I think I was doing questions earlier, and I imagine that pit window being around the 25 to 23 minute to go mark for them, so we will have to see. But this battle here on screen with Lowendick, Ovando, and Montini really starting to shape up, and the thing that if I'm thinking about, if I'm Federico Montini, is I almost want to let Ovando catch Lowendick, because that battle is going to let me close up even more. And so here, you ride on board with them, it just looks like Federico doesn't have the top speed, doesn't have that straight line oomph to be able to get him close enough to make the move.
Certainly not. They're completing yet another lap going past the pit entry and into Vale and Club. Ahead of this, Lowendick, now that he's managed to jump into 7th, can he start to gap him? He hasn't yet thus far. Still with Ovando about half a second behind him. Would have thought that he'd be able to most likely start to increase the gap as we watch the sunset from around the rear wing of Ted Lowendick. Things getting tight again between Ovando and Montini. Is this one going to do the trick?
It just might, but again, it looks like Federico not exactly having the jump off the line that he wanted. The draft really going to help him here. If he's going to do it, he has to be very late on the brakes, and no, he is just too far back.
Looking like it's going to be a challenging one for overtakes in both of these classes, if we're frank. The drivers discovering that even though it's a fast track and even though it was built by some of the best out there, it doesn't always make it an easy one to try and get around your rival. Oh, and I think Montini just went way off there. Let's take a look at that. I think you can get a slowdown penalty for going too wide off of this corner, too. So I wonder if that's what cost him. Oh, it was way in. Holy cow.
Oh, I think he just caught those left side tires onto the grass. You've seen time and time again, specifically out of the LMP2s, them kicking up the grass here. So let's watch this. Yep, that's exactly what it was. Those left rear tires on the grass as he started to turn in. That broke the grip from the car and just sent it into that slide. But great job from Federico to hold on.
Pit windows open for Federico, and I'm sure he'll get some tires and some new pants after that one. In the meantime, we still have the same leaders as we've had all race long. Herbino is up at the front of our LMP2s. There you see him with about 5.8 seconds. And Stephen Ash leads in the GTE class. Miller is going to be the first to bite the bullet. The 79 comes in. He was in, I think it was about 10th or 11th position when he pitted.
He was, and Joe, I gotta say this is a little bit surprising. Normally these GTEs have a much larger fuel tank than their big brothers, but Horatio Calquin, as I say it, and it looks like Dave Menino are the first two LMP2s to come in as well.
All righty, it is indeed kicking off. There you see coming around the corner as we ride on board with Calquin. Menino just behind him. Looks like they're going to be joined by Josh Wolf, and it's only 3 that are taking pit stops this lap. We did lose 2 drivers at the start. Barrett and Zegers were DNSs, unfortunately. So we were down to 27 by the time we even saw the green flag. Both of them taking their time here.
And just to note, none of these drivers taking tires in a short sprint race like this. No need to do it. They can very, very easily double stint. Calquin off and able to get back under his own steam. Dave Menino the same, waiting on Josh Wolf. He'll be a second or 2 longer, but about 20 seconds stationary there for Calquin.
Quickest of those 3, Josh Wolf gained a little bit of time in that exchange. 19 seconds for his pit stop, compared to a little under 21 seconds for Calquin and Menino. As we ride on board with Josh coming through the arena section ourselves. Where is Herbino? Herbino's keep going. He's not going to pit, so is Modoff. And I believe Sean Romig will be the next to take.
Yeah, so again, as I was saying, a little bit of an interesting strategy call. Normally you see these GTEs tend to go a little bit longer than the LMP2s, but clearly Romig and Miller are trying to go for a little bit of an alternate strategy.
Not seeing anybody else entering in right now. In fact, Raymond Day is the last of our LMP2s. There we go. At least one of the LMP2s taking his scheduled service. In the number 77, Raymond Day hits the timing line, has to get down to the pit lane speed, and just puts along here until he sees his lollipop man.
And Joe, especially on a track as fast and as quick as Silverstone is, it is just absolute misery to be down on that pit speed limiter. You feel like you are absolutely crawling down the pit lane so very hard. And thank goodness for those pit speed limiters, because otherwise I guarantee you a lot of these drivers, you have a very hard time keeping it down on that speed limit.
So tempting to try and get a little bit more out of it. Raymond Day, is he going to be similar in his pit stop times? And where will he pop out? It's 20 seconds. It's going a little long. It is kind of long. 22 seconds for Raymond Day. In fact, Josh Wolf is easily going to be out and through.
He is. The one caveat I will give to Joshua here is that there may be a chance he slightly under-fueled the car, so we're going to have to keep an eye there to see if that does play true. Just a note, looks like Christoph Herbeno staying out for at least another lap.
Everyone behind him so far is as well. On down to fifth with Eisler. He stays out, but Nick Johnston does not. He fancies a slightly alternate strategy to those in front of him. As we hop on board with the magenta and black number 28. He probably will be out ahead of all those that have already pitted. Cal Quinn, currently our highest who has stopped. He sits in 8th position.
And he's just under 50 seconds ahead of him, so he should be good. Nicholas Johnson, before coming into the pits, was your highest mover of your LMP2 field of 4 positions from his starting spot.
So we haven't checked in a while, and Russo and Alawi still well off the back of Stephen Ash. Remember, that was holding at about half a second for so many laps. It's now up to 3 seconds. Watching to see if Alawi is able to really try and challenge on the number 8, but so far he hasn't had the pace to try and get by him. He's been close at least, but close only works in, what was that? Hand grenades and horseshoes?
I've also heard nuclear warfare added to that list, just for the record. But yeah, I think the other thing that we have to think about with this battle is that Alawi may be thinking about trying to jump him into pit stops if he just doesn't feel like he is fast enough. Is that behind? That is Herbeno coming into the pits.
That's our leader in the LMP2s. That seems to be the end of the window for them. Nope, maybe not. Carl Modoff, we asked the question, is he playing some fuel games? The answer appears to be yes, because he's going 1 lap longer than his teammate, while Ruiz is also in, Watts is in, and Eisler. Wow, okay, so only 1 car has been able to extend it to 23 laps.
Well, and the question here is going to be is if Carl Modoff was able to save enough fuel. Now, that gap was pretty massive when he came into the pits, but we've seen that he's been able to match pace relatively well with his teammate. Once Modoff cycles through, maybe he was saving a bit of fuel. Maybe he's got a little bit more in that right foot than we were anticipating.
I think that's a pretty good bet at this point. I don't think he's letting Christoph absolutely run away with this thing. I think he's making sure that this is a fight, even if he has to do it on strategy. Speaking of Herbeno, though, he's back out on track now. And looks like Eisler nowhere near to him. Same thing with Ruiz, who exits himself, gets running. Ruiz actually in a whole lot of clear air. A whole bunch of clear air.
Well, he's going to love that from the handling standpoint of the car. The one thing for Carl Modoff, though, he caught a little bit of traffic coming in through Maggots and Beckett, so that's going to hurt his outlap. There you can see working his way around second and third place, Russo and Alawi, that battle we checked in on a little bit earlier. When you talk about the in-laps and the out-laps, that's where you make up time, Joe. That's going to hurt him a couple of tenths.
No doubt about that. 20 minutes left to go on the clock here. Modoff around Stowe. There we go. I expected him to be in that time. So what will this do between himself and Herbeno? Oh, he locks it up. Is that going to be a speeding penalty? Oh, goodness. The 948 managed to save all that fuel, and then suddenly he may have just thrown everything away.
I'm hope that is not a penalty for him, because Christoph Herbenow caught traffic the same place that his teammate Karl Modhoff did. So here you can see him. He is making his way onto Stowe right now as Modhoff about to come into stop in his stall.
Checking the speed limit here, and it was very, very tight. He was about 40 miles an hour just as he was hitting the line, but they do get a little bit of leeway on that. Here comes Herbenow, and it's a very quick stop for Modhoff. My goodness, 16 and a half seconds, so he did not get a penalty. This will gain him a lot of time, but not enough to be able to come out ahead of the 92.
No, and that gap looking like it's about 4 seconds when things equalize. So Karl's going to have a lot of work to do here. That is the quickest stop by far we have seen from any of these LMP2 drivers. So Karl once again trying to see if he can make a mile out of a couple of gallons.
I've only had 2 drivers pit in the GTEs, but Flanagan, is this a second stop for the 24? I think this is his first, honestly. Yeah, he's already got his service and he's on his way. But other than those 3, we're still waiting on pretty much the entire field of GTEs to pit. Ash is not going to go in this time. He'll just cruise on by the pit entry and start lap 23.
Yeah, Stephen Ash really out there by himself, and you saw just out of the corner of the back of your screen, Rafael Russo and Uthman Alawi both choosing to stay out as well. But 4th place, Tyler DeZube is going to be your 4th GTE car to come into the pits.
That is one of our front runners. So this will be telling. He's going to take a little bit of a risk, see if an early stop will net him some sort of gain. So the 13 looks for his stall. Looks like he's found it as he trickles down and gets onto the binders. It appears to be clean. Should be fuel only for the number 13, and then be swiftly on his way. Bertome is going to join him. And oh no, Modhoff's in again. Yeah, I think you're thinking the same thing I am. He must be serving that penalty now. Nope, wait. Okay, he is coming to a halt. Yeah, so I was going to say, does he have a drive-through maybe potentially? But a stop and go would be a speeding penalty. Goodness. This should be 15 seconds. No, he's still in there. He's still holding. This is a long penalty. What is he coming in for?
The only thing I could think of potentially, Joe, is that maybe he underfueled the car and realized it when he came out, but not for this long of a stop.
No, it would be a splash and dash. Something bizarre has gone on with Modhoff. After a win last week, it's all gone to hell. Meanwhile, our leader in the GTEs, there he goes. The number 11 is hitting it a little bit more tidy. Russo in, Alawi in, Ross is in along with Francisco Montini. Okay, this is it. This looks like the end of the pit window.
Ted Lowendick in as well, so it looks like, yeah, the entirety of the GTE field choosing to come on into the pits at this point.
Remember, one of our highest drivers to stop was DeZube. He currently sits in 10th. Now, he won't be taking over the lead, mind you, but I believe he was relatively close to a few of those around him. He was in 4th place when everybody else stayed out and he pitted. Stephen Ash is back and moving past the cones. Russo is going. Alawi is also. Where is DeZube?
He is just crossing the start-finish line right now and going through Abbey, so I think that's going to put him out ahead of Michael Ross. Indeed it does.
Comes back out exactly where he was. He's about 6 seconds behind Uthman Alawi after that. So if it gained him time, it wasn't enough for a position, but at least he didn't lose anything in that, so I'd say it was worth the risk to try. Our leaders, Russo has left Lowy behind a little bit with that exchange, even though Russo was mildly slower in his pit stop.
He was, Joe, and I think that really came down to looked like Russo was just able to carry a little bit more speed onto pit entry and hit the brakes at just the right point, gaining him just about that half a second advantage that got him out ahead. And now he's got Christian Eisler in between him and Uthman Alawi just to help build a little bit of gap.
Looking through and seeing how the complexion of things has changed since those pit stops, and with only 13 minutes to go. Honestly, the biggest one is the mysterious extra stop for Karl Modhoff, which, by the way, wound up being at 43 seconds stationary, which is, again, a bit of an unusual number. And that has meant that Herbino now has a gap of 13 seconds over Felipe Ruiz. It is not looking good for the 58. Something dramatic is going to have to happen to Herbino for Felipe to have a hope at winning this race.
Exactly, Joe, but it's one of the things you and I were actually speaking about before the broadcast started about multi-class racing. Even if you are in a field by yourself, like our leader Christoph Herbino is, there is always something doing on track. He will always be coming up on those slower GTE cars, so Herbino cannot let off yet. He has still got to complete this last 12 and a half minutes to near perfection.
Always got to make it to that checkered flag before anybody else, before you can claim victory. As we watch one of our drivers stream through Cop's corner. That is Herbino in his 92. Now, what about Cal Quinn here? Leighton. Now, wasn't Leighton behind Cal Quinn before the pit stops?
So Joe, taking a quick look at my lifetime and scoring feed, it looks like that their stops, I think Leighton was about 3 seconds faster in the box, so that's what put him up ahead.
And unfortunately, as we rode on board there with Cal Quinn, he got held up by Alawi coming through Cops, but now it's going to be paid back just a little bit as Leighton had to check up for Russo, but so does Cal Quinn down through the Maggots and Beckett sequence. He is hustling, though. He is desperate to try and hold on to the rear of Leighton so that he can try and get this spot back. Doesn't want to finish in 7th after qualifying one position higher than that.
No, he certainly does not, and it looks like Stephen Ash will be the next car up the road. That is your GTE leader. Little bit of a checkup there coming through Vale and Club, but not going to be too much. That gap coming down now as he's got a little bit more speed. Cal Quinn does, coming down to about 1.2 seconds.
Had to take a bit of an offline down through Abbey. Cal Quinn sees that. Tries to capitalize, closes in the gap by a couple tenths of a second. And once again, Stephen Ash just trying to run his own race. He's going to take the apex there. And Cal Quinn has to wait and wait until here. Oh, lot of a big bobble there from the number 666. And unfortunately, what was down to 8 tenths of a second increases back to 1.5. I almost wonder if he needs to just kind of back it off a little bit instead of trying to go 110%.
Most certainly. It's the story that I've told before about Jackie Stewart talking about the way to drive faster is to calm yourself down. And when the team tells you to drive slow, you sometimes end up driving faster because your body's relaxed. I think that's exactly the sort of medicine that Horatio Cal Quinn may need here to try to get this by. If he tries to manhandle the car, especially around some of these finesse corners at Silverstone, it could come back to bite him.
I remember reading a similar interview with Bobby Rahal talking about driving the Porsche at the Daytona 24 and being told to keep off of curbs and things and to take care of the car. And when he was running faster laps than anybody else in the race, they were yelling at him, and he said, I am going slow. I am staying off. It's just everybody else is making the cars fall. He just kept that Porsche so clean that nobody else had the pace because they had banged it up so much. As
one of the many quirks of racing that does make it such an incredible sport. And there you see as Kelquin continues to try to close that down, but that gap now up to 2 seconds. So it looks like he is not exactly heeding our advice, and Tiensai Leighton starting to pull away a little bit here.
Let's check back in with Stephen Ash, our leader in the GTEs. Now, here's what's fascinating. If he manages to win here today, that will tie him up on race wins with Alawi and Ross. And try to do some quick math to see if this will change the order between the three of them in that championship. But very, very interesting how even these three have been all season long, both in terms of points and just where their finishing stats have sat.
Very much so, and we've seen time and time again that it seems like one driver really able to pull out and get away from everybody else. That's sort of been the story of this GTE battle over the course of the season. So it's going to be interesting as if these drivers start to recognize that and try to basically make the tracks in the latter half of the schedule their best tracks, trying to push a little bit more, because I think that's the only way that one of these guys is going to be able to try to get past someone.
Got to feel a little bit for Rafael Russo. He's been quick all season, but he's still winless. And in fact, he's only had 3 top 5s, let alone podiums, within the first 6 rounds. So 50% strike rate, probably not what he's been looking for, which is why he's so far back in the points compared to guys like Ash, Alawi, and Ross. But he's going to come up shy again today if things stay as they are. He's about 3.5 seconds back from Stephen Ash. Now, we've said it before, and we'll say it again. Lap traffic here in this series can easily change that the nature of that battle.
It most certainly can, as these drivers start to get their way around the track. And looking at my screens, it looks like they are most certainly not out of the woods, as that is Joshua Wolf and Raymond Day working their way around them right now.
Indeed. There's Wolf on your screen coming up to our GTE leader. Going to be 6 minutes to go pretty soon here. And checking to see it just under 2 minutes per lap. I think we've got 4 laps to go for Christoph Herbeno.
And just to check back in on Christoph Herbeno, he has been able to keep that gap nice and wholesome. That gap holding at over 13 seconds, eking its way towards 14 seconds over second place Felipe Ruiz.
I suspect Watts will be happy with this one. Looking at a podium today, especially after he qualified in 5th and was able to keep clean where others were not able to do so. Had the pace to be ahead of Christian Eisler, and honestly has really outrun Eisler by a wide margin. It's 11 seconds nearly back to that 7.27 right now. And then on top of that, a little bit of luck from Karl Modhoff having some sort of mysterious extra and long stop that gifted him that 3rd position. So the red, white, and blue number 14, the race factory car, coming through the arena section for the final 5 minutes of this race, and hopefully just able to tick those laps off and have a quiet run to be able to spray the champagne at the end of this thing.
Well, let's not forget that it was Owen Watts that had that incredible threading the needle moment earlier in the race. And so I'm sure at this point, he is very happy to have a little bit of calmness out on track after that hair-raising moment earlier on.
Noticing things are getting close for 7th in the GTE class. This is between Ovando and Lowendick. Remember, we saw Boris ahead of him earlier on, and he made an error coming into Brooklyn, slid the car, caught it, but as soon as he did, Lowendick was able to sneak through. As we hop on board with the red and black number 22, you can see how close he's gotten to Ted.
Yeah, and he's been really closing this gap just by inches over the course of the past several laps. Boris doing a wonderful job to just try to keep up the pressure on Ted Lowendick's Porsche ahead of him. There you can see taking a little bit of different lines through the arena section. They work their way through the loop now and out of Ames entry to get onto the Wellington straight. Boris going to be trying to get as much speed as he can, as there you see Christoph Herbeno for good measure setting the fastest lap of the race.
Not slowing down for anybody, no matter how big of a gap he has. He's going to continue to push in case he needs it. Ooh, another little mistake there as Lowendick went wide coming out of Brooklands. This allows Ovando to cut the gap down just a little bit. It's 0.3 of a second between them.
It is, and he's going to be hoping to capitalize here, but this is the part that we've seen trip up so many drivers in trying to make that overtake, coming out of Copse and then through Maggots and Beckett's when you've got dirty air ahead of you. Not nearly as much downforce generation as an open-wheel car in these GTs, but those massive rear wings do enough to tell you that they still need it. So here they come. He's able to keep it nice and tidy behind Lowendick here. He's got that gap down. He is going to be pushing.
Is this going to be enough? He's been working on it for a long time. I'm sure he's kicking himself for the mistake that he made, and he runs out of straightaway up into Stowe. To complicate things, coming up to them quickly is Christoph Herbeno, and I think he will lap them before the race is over, because we're going to get 2 to go this time by.
We are indeed, and Herbeno about 8.5 or so seconds behind this pair. There you saw Boris taking a very narrow line out of club there, a little bit squirrely on corner exit, but able to keep it under. Again, through the arena section, very tight. He's able to keep up behind as they go through farm. Now diving down into village. Oh, Boris has got the pressure on here.
Seems to like those slower corners. Wonder if he's got the car sussed out now that he had that pit stop, able to figure out how to work his way through those and try to chip away at the number 72. Coming down into Brooklands, this is where he lost the car before. Goes for that late apex. Still nothing for them there.
Nothing yet, but runs a little bit wide there on the exit of Luffield. That'll cost him about 1/10 of a second, but he's able to stay close enough behind. Now here they come into Copse. You see him perfectly line astern. Not going to do anything there. That is the place to make a last lap move. Not here yet. So they're going to come in through Maggots and Beckett's. Boris losing like he's losing a little bit of ground here, but still close behind.
Don't need to go to it, but I can tell you in his chase of Leighton, Cal Quinn spun the car, and that one's pretty much over. Meanwhile, I think our battle is going to be caught by the leader at the absolute perfect time. Herbeno has a good run down the hanger straight, or will he? He's going to get right between them. That's not good news for Ovando. Oh, he's going to try to go to the inside. He's given space. Great heads up by Lowendick, but he gave up valuable tenths there, and Ovando knows it. He gets right up behind him down into Vale, and he can't quite attack. So as we get the white flag across the line, it's getting to be do or die for the 22.
Yeah, Boris has really got to put the moves on here, and he knows and see just how wide he took that corner coming outside of club. But there goes Christoph Herbeno in a league of his own here. But we're going to jump back on board with Boris Ovando. Very, very tight line there through farm. Going down now into village. These guys both know this is their final lap. Ted's only got to hold out for one more lap, and Boris only has 1 lap to make this pass work.
How aggressive does Boris dare to be? Oh, as he loses a little traction coming off of the loop. Is that going to cost him his best chance? They pick up pace down the Wellington straights. My goodness. Ovando is going to be frustrated after this race for sure. He looks so close going into there, and it's slipping through his fingers. A much tighter line down through Luffield. He's clawed it back.
He has indeed been able to carry good momentum on the exit. They're able to get the power down. Lowendick trying to get away as much as he can down through Woodcut. Here comes one of those last chance maneuvers I talked about. Is he going to do it in Copse? No, he's not. Ovando's going to stay behind. He's really got 1 or 2 more chances to try to make this pass. That going up the hill into Stowe or coming around club.
He needs the run of his life. Oh, but that's not going to give it to him as he spins it out. Oh, Vondo, unfortunately, is off and around. This is Alawi fighting for second place. This is just ahead of our leader, so we can watch this for a brief moment. Looks like he's not there yet, but he'll get a whole nother lap to try and run him down, because Christoph Herbino comes out of club corner and takes victory here today at Silverstone.
Absolutely impeccable run here from Christoph Herbino. A wonderful, wonderful masterclass in how to lead a multi-class race.
That means our top three in the GTEs are going to get one full lap around. Ash is well clear. He's 5 seconds ahead of Alawi and Russo. But what happened to Russo? Did Russo just spin? I think Russo... Oh no, there was contact. Alawi and Russo came together.
Oh my goodness gracious. Looks like this was coming down into Village here. You can see Russo ahead, Alawi clawing in behind. Alawi's going to go for a very late maneuver around the outside, try to get it. Russo just loses control and right into the back of him.
Yeah, I wouldn't put that one on Alawi. Russo seems to have lost control, and unfortunately, Utman only had so many choices in that split second. Meanwhile, this is Stephen Ash, your leader up at the top of the GTEs, looking for victory number 2 here today. His last win came in round 2. It's been a while for him, and that was at Watkins Glen that we saw Stephen Ash top the charts. So coming across the pond, he's got pace here today, and down into Vale. Looks like he's going to seal the deal, managing to finish at the top spot of the podium. The number 11 is your winner at Silverstone.
And there you see, just having a little fun crossing over the line there. A well-deserved little victory dance for Stephen Ash and his Porsche behind him.
Is Dzube on this lap? Sorry, I think Russo's going to lose. Russo lost third place. Or did he? Yes, he did. The timing and scoring just updated. Russo slow across the line. I wonder if he's out of fuel.
He is, Joe. Look at him. He has got nothing left in that tank. Rafael Russo underfueled the car.
Oh, wait. My timing and scoring. Oh, wow. Holy cow. And we had penalties. Alawi finished second on the field, but he must have overstepped his incident points with that last contact, because he's now scored in 4th. Oh, this is going to take some unraveling. We're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, which we hope will answer some questions. Welcome back to Silverstone. Round 7 in the PRL LeMans series was a fascinating one. Christophe Herbinot took another victory here today and certainly gets himself back in the championship with win number 4 on the season. Felipe Ruiz didn't have anything for him, but lucked out a little bit. He didn't look like he had second place or any hope for it until a mysterious incident happening to Karl Modov and bumped Ruiz up to second place. Owen Watts as well got promoted to third because of that. Christian Eisler, despite qualifying in second, something about his race pace just didn't stand up to scrutiny, and he wound up in fourth. Nick Johnston going from 9th to 5th. Great jump there, buddy. Tiensai Layton was P6, and Dave Minino was 7th. Raymond Day finished P8 with Josh Wolf in 9th. Karl Modov managed to work his way back around into 10th, and Horatio Calquin settled for 11th.
Stephen Ash was the winner of your GTE category, and that is the most straightforward part of this top 5. Tyler DeZube able to get second place courtesy of some penalty points and running out of fuel for our next 2 drivers. Rafael Russo running out of fuel coming out of Stowe and down into Vale. And then Uthman Alawi, you saw that incident he had with Russo on the final lap that put him over the incident limit and gave him a penalty, demoting him back to 4th place. Michael Ross, championship contender, finished 5th place with Francisco Montini in 6th. Ted Lowendick, you saw him come home in 7th, followed by Federico Montini, then Sean Romig and Nicholas Delp to round out your top 10. Jerome Bethune came home in 11th, followed by Mac Miller and Boris Ovando. We saw him have that spin in that battle with Lowendick that he had for much of the race. Kenny Rodriguez came home 14th, followed by Brian Vorsey, followed by David Flanagan and Brett Barrett to round out your GTE finishers.
The first of those GTE finishers, Stephen Ash, has joined us here with his second win on the season. But it's been a minute because, Stephen, last time you won was way back at round 2 in Watkins Glen. This has got to feel good finally returning to that top step.
Yeah, how's it going, guys? It feels really good to be back on the top step. It was a pretty tough one today, and yeah, it's been a while, so it's really good to be here and to close down the gap in the championship as well.
Now, first part of the race, it seemed like Russo and Alawi were keeping you pretty honest, but then second half of the race, did you have something left over? Did you just turn up the wick, or what happened?
Yeah, so I actually messed up the start of the race a little bit. I didn't hear there's usually a signal when the pit car goes into pit lane, or the safety car goes into pit lane, and I didn't hear that, so I went as soon as it went green. So Rafael Russo kind of got a little bit of a jump on me, and it kind of threw me off a bit, and I ended up cooking my tires a little bit in the first couple laps, which made things pretty difficult early on, especially with him in draft. But yeah, then I got a little bit of help from the LMPs, and that separated us. And then from there, I was just able to manage the gap, manage my tires, manage fuel, and yeah, manage the race.
Indeed. And the good news is both Ross and Alawi are a little ways down the order. This should push you up pretty close to the points lead after this. 3 more rounds to go, and it's very tight up front. Is that pretty nerve-wracking?
Yeah, it's been a fantastic season, to be honest, with some really good guys. Michael Ross, a pretty good friend of mine, so that's awesome to see him up there with me. And Uthman, I've never seen him in the series before, but yeah, he's a great racer as well, very respectful. So yeah, it's honestly been an awesome season. I can't wait to see how it finishes.
Well, we can't wait either. You guys have given us some fascinating storylines to follow. Congratulations on the win, and look forward to seeing you in a week.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
That was our winner, Stephen Ash. And up next, it looks like DJ has caught up with our surprise second place finisher, Tyler DeZube.
Tyler, I may have to go on record to say that is the most crazy last lap of a race I have seen in a long time in covering this series. Talk me through that, man.
That last lap almost didn't even happen because I almost let Christophe through so I wouldn't have to run an extra lap, not realizing that I guess Uthman had a penalty, and I know Russo ran out of fuel, so I'm glad that I coasted through and kept going for another lap.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it was. Now, I got to ask you, you were one of our earlier stoppers. What was the mentality going into the pits that early? We normally see these GTEs tend to extend the pit window a little bit longer.
You're right. I've had so many instances where waiting to the last bleeding edge has burned me. I was 4 seconds behind Russo, 4 seconds ahead of Ross, so there was no point in me. I was very comfortable where I wasn't trying to push anything too hard.
Okay, I understand that, and I can get that well. Well, you know, this has been sort of an up and down season for you here and there. I've got a couple of rounds left. Any race you're particularly looking forward to? Any track that's one of your favorites?
I'm just trying to be Mr. Consistent. You know, I think I've been P5 to P8 in every race this season. And so this is my first podium, and just trying to battle with these about 4 or 5 tier 1 guys in this league. So I'm hoping that maybe next season I'll be there with them more consistently.
Well, we hope to see you up there, Tyler. And before we let you go tonight, anybody you need to thank tonight?
Yeah, I'm racing with the Speedworks racing team. Love those guys. Big thanks to them. And it sounds like you guys got some new microphones. So thanks to you guys for commentating. You guys sound like butter.
Well, that's the best compliment I've heard in a long time. So thank you. And congratulations again on a second place. All right. And now Joe Peak has caught up with our third place GTE finisher, Rafael Russo.
Indeed, the Brazilian probably wasn't expecting this either. Rafael, you had a great fight going on with Utman there at the end, and suddenly you had your spin. Did you know when that spin happened that you were that short on fuel, or were you just completely unaware?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations to Ash for the amazing results. About the race and the spun, I did a mistake in the fuel. I put 1 liter less. So in the last lap, I had to save a little bit, and I committed a mistake. I locked the brakes on turn 3 and spun, and unfortunately, Utman hit me. And I'm really sorry for that. And I didn't know that he had a track penalty, right? He received a black flag because of cutting tracks. And but the race was really nice. I wasn't expecting that performance with Corvette, but I don't know. It was really fun. I tried to follow Ash, but when the LMP2 started to appear, I lose a little bit of time, and the pace were so close between me, Ash, and Utman that when he opens a little bit, I can't figure out how to reduce that advantage. But it was really fun. I'm just really sorry for Utman on the last lap, but overall it was a really fun race and a really exciting one, because you can't commit any mistakes during the race because the pace was so tight.
Speaking of mistakes and consistency, it looks like it's been a bit since you've been finishing this high. The first 2 rounds, things were looking pretty decent, and then you had a string of poor results. Do you think this is going to turn things around for those final 3 rounds?
Yeah, man. The first 2 rounds were really nice, and then we have some updates in GT cars where the Corvette was still good, but the Porsche was really OP, especially with the tires. But in Daytona, I made a noob mistake. I loaded the wrong setup for the race, so I thought I was starting P4, but I loaded the wrong setup, and so the rest is just a mess. And then I messed up. A different setup in Daytona, I simply can't drive the car. And Imola, it was a track that I'm not so familiar to, so I just try to avoid mistakes and complete the race. And Silverstone is a track that I really enjoy. And let's see, Montreal, it's a track that I'm not familiar to, but I will try to practice it a lot to have a good result.
It will be a difficult one, I can tell you that. Congratulations. Congratulations on a podium, and hopefully we'll see you repeat that when we go to Canada.
I hope so. Thank you, guys.
That was Rafael Russo, third place here. And the GTE, seems like all the GT drivers want to talk to us today and didn't get anybody from our LMP2 class. Maybe we'll change that next week as we wrap things up here with a big thank you to our sponsors, starting off with Simulation Motorsports Affinity. SIMMSA can be found at SIMMSA.net if you want to check out how you can get involved in the world of sim racing. And NinjaTrader, of course, been a sponsor here for the PRL for quite some time. They are simply at NinjaTrader.com. And finally, at Butt Kicker Products, they are at thebuttkicker.com. And certainly worth checking out, since I assume you're interested in sim racing with you watching this. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Her Bandcamp is listed at the bottom. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. And if you'd like to support the channel, check out our merchandise store at simply gsrc.storenvy.com. We keep a link in the description below to make that nice and easy to find. Next race, as we mentioned, going off to Montreal will be Tuesday, February 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Stay tuned, because the Turn 2.0 Flying Huskies are going to Road America in less than an hour. That'll be at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard. See you on the track.